You think you know everything there is to know about the Minions? The details I'm about to talk about are things you still would have missed, even if you watched Minions 100 times. From the truth about Gru's childhood to how the Minions altered human history and how the Lorax has secretly been in this universe the entire time. You're going to want to stick to the end of the video for every single detail. And while you're here, hope you don't hit the subscribe button. Come on, you're never gonna get better Minion content anywhere else. So starting, we just have to talk about the settings of the first movie. It's not explicitly stated when the movie is set, but barely a quarter of an hour in, we get the exact details of when the movie is set. When Kevin, Stuart, and Bob finally make it to New York City, the giant metropolis is as captivating as ever. But if you look closely, you can clearly see a campaign billboard of President Richard Nixon. And it clearly reads, Nixon now more than ever. So this isn't just a campaign. This is a re-election campaign. And this puts the year of this movie to be 1968, the year that Richard Nixon went up against Hubert Humphrey. I mean, most people would have clocked the timeline eventually, but the truth is, this information could have been known as early as 20 minutes into the movie for anyone who paid close enough attention. Now, Illumination made sure to stay consistent with the time period throughout this movie, despite all the various locations different scenes take place in. You can imagine just how much history homework the filmmakers had to do to make sure that nothing was out of place. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if people actually thought that this movie took place in 1969 because of the whole moon landing scene we got barely 2 minutes after they got to New York. I mean, that's when the NASA Apollo 11 mission happened. But get this, yeah? This is literally a film studio where the moon landing is being staged. So it would make sense that the filming for it would happen a year prior so they could get the perfect scene and footage. Now you know how Despicable Me really cares about the moon. That was literally the plot of the entire first movie. Gru and Vector are battling over it after Vector stole it. So this is a nice reference to that. But the inclusion of this scene and the possibility of a faked moon landing is wild work. It really makes you wonder if Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin actually went up there. And are the Minions really trying to tell us that the moon landing really wasn't real? Now, remember that scene where Kevin, Stuart, and Bob are on the run in London and trying to evade capture? When they hopped into that sewer, they had no idea that they were about to be part of one of the most iconic pictures in British history. After going about in the sewers, they chose a manhole cover to emerge from, and it just happened to be directly on a zebra crossing. But not just anyone. It was the street just outside Westminster Abbey, St. John's Wood. And would you look at that? They came up just when the Beatles were over the street for the iconic shot of the 1969 album Abbey Road. These 4 background characters are dressed in the exact iconic wardrobe configurations worn by John Lennon, Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison. From Lennon's stark all-white suit to McCartney's completely barefoot stride and out-of-step footing, the animators meticulously replicated the exact visual composition of the world-famous photograph. Because the album wasn't recorded and released until 1969, showing the Fab Four shooting their album cover in late 1968 is a minor creative timeline stretch, but it functions as a brilliant visual love letter to British rock history. You might think that Rise of Gru was the first time that we were introduced to a young Gru, but the first time we actually see him is in the first Minions movie. But you'd be wrong. He's actually in the first Minions movie as well, specifically at the Villain Con. We see Bob, Stuart, and Kevin make their way through the sea of villains, and right here, you can catch Gru with his mom watching on, as Dr. Nefarious uses an ice weapon. And judging from Dr. Nefarious, this dude was actually a hottie when he was younger. And you see that ice blaster? This is the very same weapon we see Gru use during the first movie. That means that this weapon has been with our favorite anti-hero for decades upon decades. I wonder if any of the Minions ever looked at Gru and thought that right there was the man who was going to change their lives. Vector is such a funny dude. He's the main bad guy of the first movie, and after that, he basically fades into irrelevance. I mean, after what he did to Gru and his adopted girls, he deserves to be stuck on the moon. But wait a minute, we never got an explanation as to how he returned to Earth. If anything, the only evidence we have to work with is the fact that he isn't on the moon, but somewhere further. He's actually supposed to be on Mars. You see, in the short movie Mooned, we see all the crazy things Vector is up to when he's stuck up there. He's been doing everything in his power to get off the moon, but to no avail. When he comes across this minion, he actually ends up blasting into a minion spaceship, which propels him all the way to Mars. Did the animators forget that this dude was supposed to be stuck on an entirely different planet? I mean, think about it. If he escaped back to Earth, I think it would be more rational for him to be living a free life. Because who comes back from another planet just to do jail time? I don't even believe Vector misses his fellow villains that much. He's a jerk anyway. I'm starting to think that Gru is aware that he stars in an animated movie, and the hint is in the supercar he drives. Boy, this ride is sick. I wish I had one of those. The way he just zooms past everybody and everything makes me want to hurry up and get a driver's license. Sorry, back to what I was saying. Pay close attention to his number plate here. It was the number plate DM090710. Obviously, the DM stands for Despicable Me, but the numbers, trust me, these aren't random either. It's actually the date when the first Despicable Me movie came out, July 9th, 2010. Everybody talks about how meeting your heroes can be a bad thing, and after we got to see how the Vicious Six treated Gru, I mean, this does not look like the type of people anybody should be looking up to. But I guess Gru just happened to learn that the hard way. While you can never really count on them for advice, you could actually take a thing or two from their interior design ideas. You see that couch that's in their headquarters? I'm talking about the giant alligator one with red leather. Before it belonged to Gru, it belonged to this dude right here. I guess if you're not going to get kind words from the people that you look up to, you can at least get some nice furniture. We have to address the weird coincidence as to why the minions always end up with the deceased master. The very first despicable character they ever served as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, up until they had him fall into a volcano, essentially doing away with him. The next master they had was a caveman, and they weren't directly responsible for his demise per se, but giving someone a fly swatter to fight a bear with is just begging for them to go to an early grave. Then there was the birthday surprise they pulled for Count Dracula. Gosh, that was quite the surprise. The vampire didn't even get the chance to blow out his candles. And then there was Napoleon, who got turned into a firework thanks to the very smart thinking of his minions. In the second movie, we didn't really get to see much of this since it was an origin story for Gru, but by the third movie, we see this trend continue. When an emperor is carrying out an expedition, the minions chop down a bamboo tree that had a panda on it. It fell right on top of the emperor. Then there was that scene where one of the minions had the pirate captain caught in a fishing line. There is nothing harmless if it has the minions involved, because how does a Cyclops end up breaking his bones and falling off a cliff from just stepping on Lego? Sleeping on the job led to this king losing his head, and all I can say is that Gru might just have some really thick plot armor to have remained untouched till now. How insane is that? Did you notice how the three minions in the first Minion movie are really a reflection of Gru's daughters? I mean, think about it. Kevin is the tallest and most sensible one out of him, Bob, and Stuart, almost as if he's the big brother of the trio. And you know who perfectly embodies this? Margot is also the tallest and the most well-behaved. Not to mention, she's a nerd as well. Then we have the adorable babies, Bob and Agnes. Agnes can always be spotted with the toy, and Bob, this dude, doesn't go anywhere without his teddy bear. And if you ever see Agnes, you know that a stuffed animal is never too far away. Then we have the troublemakers, and let's just say Stuart is basically just Edith if she were a yellow henchman who couldn't speak English. What makes this even stranger is that the events of the first movie take place decades before any of the girls were even born. So Gru later adopting the girls who share the personalities with his closest minion is clearly a coincidence. Now, here's something you've probably wondered but never got to know the answer to. If the master the minions serve always ends up unalive at some point, how come Gru is still alive? Now, there is a more convincing argument than just saying it's plot armor. You see, look at the way Gru got acquainted with the minions in the second Minion movie. They've never served a master so young. And I mean, previous masters just saw them as workers and henchmen. But Gru, he's family to them. He sees them as brothers. But then again, this really doesn't mean anything. The minions never did anything on purpose, so it's as if the things that happened to their former masters were because of a grudge or anything. So what gives? The truth is that Gru isn't just a despicable person. He's a despicable genius. I mean, all those inventions, the gadgets and high-tech equipment, you really think that Gru would see them unintentionally cooking something so dangerous that it could lead to his doom and he wouldn't do something about it? Nah, you must be mistaken. Let's look at the facts. Is there any one of the minions' previous masters who would have had a higher IQ than Gru? Definitely not the dinosaur or the caveman. You can make a strong case for Napoleon, but Gru stealing the moon makes the French general look basic if you ask me. Now, here's something we have to address about these yellow dudes. There are over 700 of them, specifically 799. Wonder why this exact number? Well, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can figure out just why this is the case in our next video. Now, despite this huge number, there is only one gender of the minion species. They are all males with no females in sight. This breaks a very fundamental law of biology, but at this point, the minions don't obey any law. They don't reproduce, they're indestructible, and now there is only one gender. There isn't any explanation in the lore for this. It was just a creative decision that the producers made. I mean, these dudes are crazy and chaotic. There is no ounce of feminine energy in them. Even the one time we see a minion character that looks like it might be a female, it turns out that it's nothing more than one of these nut jobs fooling around. So truly, there is no female minion anywhere, and this doesn't look like something that Illumination Studios will be changing anytime soon. We've had 4 Despicable Me movies and now a trilogy of Minion movies. I think if there were any female minions anywhere, we would have known by now. As hard as it might be to believe that Despicable Me and the Lorax take place in the same universe, it's high time you believed it. In this scene, we see Ted wearing what looks like just another pair of Chuck Taylor sneakers, but that's not what they are. They are actually a pair of shoes made by a company with the logo right here. Yup, that's right, you read that right. It says Gru's Shoes. And it even has an icon of a minion on it. You might be wondering when Gru started making shoes since we didn't even see any signs of it in the movie. But I guess when being a villain stops paying, there isn't much you wouldn't do for some extra cash. And it seems that Gru tried marketing footwear in another universe. There is evidence to make us believe that these two universes are connected. Just look at Margot's shirt in this scene here. That's literally the Lorax's face right here. And by Despicable Me 2, the film was still in the making. I guess when Gru's shoe business didn't work after producing so many, he started traveling between different universes to sell them and break even. It would be nice to see this Dr. Seuss character in the next Despicable Me movie. Hey, Illumination, I guess you know what you've got to do. Can we commend the artistic nature of these minions? These dudes don't miss when it comes to giving a flawless vocal delivery. We saw them sing their hearts out at Gru's wedding. It almost felt like a musical concert. In that talent show, they literally brought the roof down. But come to think of it, these dudes have been around right from where humans didn't even know what music was. They probably know about half of the songs humanity has ever made. So if you've been singing every song since the dawn of time, by the time you're in the 21st century, you'd most likely be a natural at it. Did you catch that scene where the minions are having lunch on a steel bar while they are working on the construction of the lab? It seems like just another normal day working for Gru, but this is actually a famous reference to the picture of construction workers in New York having lunch on top of a steel bar. I guess you can't have a fear of heights when you're working on construction, but gosh, I'd be terrified to stand that far up in the first place, let alone have lunch on it. Remember when we talked about the creativity of the minions? And how do they make such good singers? Well, I have a very strong feeling that if we ever get a fourth Minions movie, it's going to be about music, and we're going to get a musical. Come on, it just has to be. Minions and Monsters was about these little dudes documenting their filming experience. And you know how much we'd enjoy an animated musical from our favorite banana-loving creatures. I really hope they make this happen. Since we're on the topic of bananas, it's no secret that the Minions are in love with this fruit. They love eating it, they're always shouting it, and they're just pure fanatics for the fruit. And the reason is really that hard. They just love a good fruit that reminds them of themselves. That's really all there is to it. Bananas just make them feel good about themselves. And I guess all the nutrients they ever need are in bananas. In the first Minion movie, we see how Kevin gets hungry and starts visualizing Stuart and Bob as bananas. Technically, if you want to be a cannibal, that would make you a carnivore. But for some reason, when he gets hungry, all he can think about is bananas. And this also leads to the shocking truth that you probably never thought about. These guys are vegetarians through and through. Do you see the way they look at bananas? Even meat lovers don't look at steak like that. So a peculiar diet centered on one fruit isn't the only weird thing about their body. In case you haven't noticed, they don't have noses. The only thing on their face is their mouth and eyes. And without a nose, this basically means two things. They don't breathe and they can't smell things. Now let's address the breathing issue. These organisms, I honestly don't know if I can still call them that after learning they have a diet that makes no sense and they can't reproduce. But these guys don't need oxygen the way humans and other life forms do. Because if that's the case, then they would have their mouths open at all times since they don't have any other way to take in air. And there are plenty of moments where we see their mouths shut. As crazy as it may seem, we could assume that perhaps their ears are the other way they breathe. But not only would that be disgusting, but it wouldn't work. How we know is by this scene here where we see a minion floating into space. How about that short where we see them having a campfire on Mars? Do you know what this means? These guys don't need oxygen, so they don't need a nose. How else do you think that these two guys who were suspended in jelly were still able to crack a few giggles in here? You know how kids get excited when they see candy and dogs wag their tails when they have a bone in their mouth? Well, there's something that turns the minions into total freaks, and that's the sight of danger. Well, specifically the sign of tools that go kaboom. In the first Minion movie, when Kevin, Stuart, and Bob needed to go to Orlando, they hitched a ride with the Nelson family. Now, this seemed like just a group of super nice people who seemed like pure souls. They had you in the first half too, didn't they? That's right, you couldn't be more wrong. These guys were as evil as they come. I mean, the first sign was the skull on the baby's pacifier. After a few seconds into the trip, we see this woman actually brandish a weapon and expose just what they have in the trunk. Did the minions flinch? They did anything but that. It's as if the sight of dangerous items hits them like the smell of turkey from the oven. They get even more intrigued. Now, this may be a little piece of detail, but it is so in line with their whole hardwiring to follow despicable people. And we have to remember they were fresh from leaving the cave, so seeing evil people like this would have given them the shivers. Want to learn another thing you didn't know about the minions? Well, when they were working for Cyclops, you could catch a glimpse of a stuffed Hydra here. And that means one of two things happen. They either helped their master do away with the head-splitting serpent, or the two monsters went at each other kaiju style, and the winner got the servitude of the minions. It's such an easy detail to miss, but it's really the only fascinating thing that we see in the Cyclops home. And to be honest, I really think the minions just walked in on the two monsters fighting and decided to serve whoever won the battle. Before you call me crazy, just give it a little bit of thought. Do you really think that the minions would have a task like helping the Cyclops beat a seven-headed monster and they wouldn't find a way to screw it up like they always do? Their intuition always works against them for some odd reason. If the Cyclops had had the help of the minions, the one-eyed giant would have gone into the fight handicapped. In case you're looking for more evidence to back this up, I think Henry's Legos being the Cyclops' doom says it all. He can't even have these guys play in-house. How would they help him take down a dragon? Wait a freaking long second. Did we just see the minions build and play with Lego during a time when plastic wasn't even invented? I know what I saw. I'm not bugging. These minions actually created one of the world's most popular toys right before our eyes. That means that these dudes literally invented one of the world's greatest playing toys. And here's what will blow your mind the most. What color are Lego action figures? That's right, they're yellow. And the fact that the heads are normally just a block high, the same way we see it in this scene here, makes perfect sense. I think some archaeologists in this world dug up the remains of the marble toys the minions made, and this inspired them to make the real-life version of Legos. If you want to check the real-world reference, just know that Legos weren't a thing until the late 1930s thanks to a toy designer from Denmark. So even during this movie, it wouldn't be till a full decade before Legos became a thing. But hey, Legos are Legos. Who cares about a couple of toys? Here's another minion fact that is so important to the lore of the universe, yet people ignore it so much. How would you feel if I told you minions kind of educated humanity on knowledge and technology, and we kind of owe them a lot for modern civilization? We literally just finished talking about the minions making a toy a whole millennia before humans started using it. So what makes you think that some of the appliances and other things humans enjoy aren't part of things the minions made? We really don't have much to work with, but there is evidence that can prove that minions are the ones that taught humans the different languages they know. In this scene here, we literally hear the minions shout banana. Here's why this is a big deal. Take a lot of what they're wearing. This is their outfit from when they were in the prehistoric era. I don't think it's a coincidence that banana is called the same thing across several languages. And here's why humans owe their knowledge of language to them. The minions have been to almost every continent, and their dialect of Minionese would have rubbed off on the humans around them during all those centuries. So while Minionese is a combination of over a dozen languages, in this universe, Minionese is what's given rise to all these different languages. Bet you're going to struggle to watch Minions the same way ever again. I thought as much, to be fair. According to the newest Minion movie, not everyone went into exile in the caves when they lost Napoleon. Or, well, at least not everyone stayed. And I actually believe that some of the minions, like Henry and James, left Kevin and the rest behind. That's how we know that there are actually two groups of minions, and those guys we saw go to New York in the first movie aren't the same guys who went to Hollywood here. The question we still haven't answered is, when did the other minion group split up? The first plausible answer would be after the fall of Napoleon. While others decided to stay in the cave because of the cave, another faction probably decided that they weren't going to let the demise of one master stop them from finding another one. That's really the spirit, but sometimes considering what you're doing, you have to sit down with your thoughts. Going into exile was low-key one of the best things that happened to them. They needed the break, but then some of them were still out there in the world. Given that not all of them would have been with Napoleon, this makes a lot of sense. When they were with the Cyclops, we didn't see any signs of Kevin, Stuart, or Bob, which means they're obviously not here either. Now this begs the question, when did the split happen? Or were they always apart until they all started serving Gru? Did you catch that scene where the warlock used a spell to make a creature that looked very much like Kyle? That made me start thinking more than I should. You mean to tell me that this piranha-looking dog wasn't a science project? How bizarre is that? And here I was thinking that Gru and Dr. Nefarious made Charles Darwin look like a bluff with their level of scientific discoveries. This movie is so different from previous ones, and it changes so much of what we have believed for a long time with the Despicable Me franchise. There's barely any science in this movie. It's set in the 1920s, for goodness sake. It would still be another 40 years before humans would attempt to go to the moon. So if you see anything extraordinary, it's thanks to magic. Except for the droid though, I don't think a cyborg belongs in a world that's barely a decade after the First World War. I mean, this is a time when people treated electricity like it was some sort of high-tech blessing from another world. There you have it. Things that you didn't notice despite watching Minions as much as you did. Minionaire is your go-to place for all things about Minions. So go check out our other videos and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss anything. The third and newest Minion movie is out, called Minions and Monsters. We have videos covering details and secrets in that movie and more coming. Catch you next time.